Most of the Asian indices are lower in early trade.
After 5 to 6% of a decline in crude oil prices overnight, we still are trading at a 4-month low.
The texture of the market just in the near term, has changed from buy on dips to sell on rally.
The market has opened with a mild red tick. You should call it flat and call it lower for Nifty Bank.
We have tested 11,600 a few times. It is a very, very important support.
We see the demand coming back in the festival season this quarter.
We were up almost 65 points. We are down 16 points. So this is quite a reversal that we're seeing.
I do understand from sources that the fresh applications that had been submitted by all telecom operators, specifically Jio, Bharti Airtel, Vodafone Idea and BSNL, will get their clearance by next week.
So far, more than 51 lakhs MSME beneficiaries has already been sanctioned.
20% quarter-on-quarter jump is what we're expecting in revenues on a consolidated basis at 1.06 lakh crores. The markets are off the day's high. In fact, Nifty and the Sensex well in the red right now.
Yeah, that's been the trend, right? The market, every time there's a rally that gets sold into, and this today as well, the bears got perhaps a perfect entry point, and the markets sold off. From the lowest point, it's recovered, but still down. Two things: the mid caps have not done as badly as the large cap indices. And secondly, the global cues are very weak, at this point in time, especially if you look at the cues coming from the US futures, they are extremely weak. But let's see what the last hour brings for us. So, hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anuj. Well, some recovery at least. Yeah. I mean, at around 12:30, it looked like this was all completely, caving through. Dow futures were down about 500 points. Now they're down about 400 points, by the way. We'll pull up European markets for you. From the lows, at least, I mean, the color is still red. There's some sign of recovery. But where does this leave us, Anuj? Because this whole range, I think this week we've seen it break completely, right? 11,700?
Yeah, the range is broken, 11,750 Surabhi. And I think the point I was making in the morning that this is now a sell on rally market, just in the near term. And because of the global context of this market, very important development. I think people must understand that if you see the US market has broken some crucial levels, S&P 500 and Dow Jones. And the US market led this mean reversion to 200-day moving average, the Dow Jones. And you are seeing that move on the downside. Yesterday, for example, the Dow had tested the 200-day moving average. So, and S&P has made some kind of a lower top. S&P, of course, is the biggest index in the world. So that way, it was, this sort of volatility was coming. Also because, there's still some uncertainty about the US election. Unless there's a landslide, I think there's some debate about whether you'll have the final outcome on the 4th or not. So all of these things are adding to uncertainty. Also, one more thing, though it's changed off late. Today, for example, TVS and Cholamandalam have changed their trend. But off late, what you've seen is that, companies not reacting positively to good earnings. For me, that's always a warning sign from the market. So that's been the trend for this earnings season. But let's see, I think today's low perhaps gives you an important sort of reference point. If that also starts to break, then that, lower levels are coming.
Okay, let's see. We've got 1 full hour of trade left before the day and the week closes up. So let's tell you what's lined up on the show. The market remains weak, though it is off the lowest levels of the day. Mid-caps are slight outperformers, so even the mid-cap index is well off the highs. Now, we'll focus on lots of stocks and lots of interesting earnings over the next 1 hour. Cholamandalam investment surges on the back of a strong performance in the second quarter. We will get you the moves on our Stock 360 segment. Of course, all eyes are on big boy Reliance Industries reporting its Q2 numbers, post-market hours today. So we get you prepped up for all of the various businesses of this giant, and that's coming up with our colleagues in the research team in just a moment. Now, how can one navigate the volatile market if you're looking ahead? We are going to be joined by Rahul Arora of Nirmal Bang Institutional Equities, and they have a couple of interesting calls, not just for the immediate future, but these are medium-term portfolio calls. So we'll get chatting with Rahul in a bit. Then our alpha manager for the day is Akash Singhania of Motilal Oswal AMC, and we'll find out what they're doing in this volatile market. And of course, earnings are keeping us very, very busy. Tomorrow, we'll hear from ICICI Bank, HDFC. These are some of the major names to watch out for. We'll tell you what the expectations are.
Okay, well, the market is off the lows. The Nifty is down about 60 points now. At one point, we were down over 100 points. Ashwani and Mitesh now join us for last hour calls. Good afternoon. Ashwani, what have you made of today's intraday movements, and what would be your call now?
Well, you have to give it to this market that it has sustained a 500-point decline on S&P 500 futures, and all said and done, yesterday you were at 11,620, today you are at 11,595, so the lows are not terribly below each other. Today you hit the 50-day moving average at 11,555. So in this sort of market, you have to take some long positions, obviously with stops. Today's low is a nice stop, and take it from there. I would think, since nobody expects Trump to win, a Trump trade could be created by buying the 12th November 12,000 call and selling the 12,300 or the 12,500, because what happens if he wins? Okay, so that way I have taken long positions on Nifty 11,800 calls, because on the downside, Bank Nifty or Nifty is not really, they are not stretching their legs. Like, it's not 300 points down on the Nifty or 1,000 on the Bank Nifty. So maybe we are closer to some sort of a short-term low, from where again we get back towards 11,700, 750. This is more a ranging type of market than looking for big trends. Having said that, I think RIL, I would like to buy, given that it's fallen so much. Whatever the results, I think market may try to find positives. So this is a buy with a stop of 2,000, target of 2150. You can do it through calls, etc. Adani Port is a buy with a stop of 354, target of 372. And BPCL is a buy with a stop of 349, target of 364. And S&P September lows is about 3,200. So very, very close to that point. So maybe that could have a turn as well.
Okay, that's an interesting call. Looking to go long just in case Trump wins. That's an interesting one, Ashwini. Mitesh, good afternoon to you. And now, last hour, are you looking to play the index, or are you just going to restrict it to stocks?
We have some out of the money call options positions which we have sold. 11,900 strike to be precise, couple of days back, and we're carrying that. I would still short the futures if we were to start closing below 11,580, and that's not happening. We did intraday dip below that, about 40-45 points, but we've recovered from there. So I think the important thing is the closing below that. So for the timing, I'm just holding it out, but yeah, we've sold call options and maintained negative structure on the markets. But from a very short-term perspective, given the fact that it's a market which is still trying to show some resilience around the 11,600 mark, I have trading calls which are on the buy side, but both of them are OMCs. I think there's also a slight bearish view on the crude involved here. So I have a buy on HPCL with a stop at 184 for targets of 196, and IOC is a buy with a stop at 78.5 for targets of 85.
Okay, those are some calls. Let's move on then. The market's cut its losses quite a bit now. Nifty is down only 38 points. Now we talk about our stock 360, and really today's stock 360 has to be Cholamandalam. It could have been either Cholamandalam or TVS Motor, but Cholamandalam, just look at the numbers. And what's interesting is that, it's up 9% today, and that makes it 9% for the month. So it went into the numbers with pretty much nothing in the bank. Perhaps that's the reason that, it has had this rally as well. Remember, this year it's still down about 11% from 52-week highs. It's still down 22%. Now, what enthused the street, of course, you heard Abhishek as well, but a lot of factors. The management commentary this morning was quite positive. You had, we had the discussion in Bazaar. A couple of other factors. 95% of the customers have started paying under moratorium, have begun repaying. That's positive. The asset under management up 16% year on year, 5% quarter on quarter. Gross NPA is down 2.7 to 2.75 versus 3.3 quarter on quarter. And I think one thing which really is going in favor of Cholamandalam is perhaps it's a bit of a rare combination of a high return on equity company, more than 20% return on equity at a reasonable price to book value. And if you look at its FY22 book, it trades at 2.1 times price to book. So that way, of course, not very cheap, but not horribly expensive either for the kind of ROE that it generates. Prakash Diwan is joining us now. Prakash, good afternoon. Being the stock of the day, Cholamandalam, your thoughts?
Good afternoon, Anuj. Yes, and I completely echo this sentiment that, this earnings season has reminded us of a very clear element in the market, and that's positioning. If a stock has gone into earnings with high expectations, irrespective of the quality of earnings, the stock does see the profit being taken off. Cholamandalam, on the back of the CV cycle, was anticipated to kind of start doing well, but these numbers tell you that it's already started doing well much earlier than anticipated. Remember, the CV cycle for pre-owned vehicles is actually likely to be very robust in the current quarter that we are in, the October-December phase. But this number tells you that they've managed cost of funds very well, they've managed their recoveries very well. And, even the commentary from Shriram Transport Finance, where they spoke about how qualitatively the earnings have been positive, the NPA accretion has been under check after a long time, tells you that this whole psychology of repaying money from borrowers in some of these marquee NBFCs, given the fact that they have segmented themselves very strongly and very, rightly, tells you that if you were to buy into the NBFC space, you would have just a handful of this choice. Go into the names, which mess in the quality. I think Chola will probably get re-rated after these earnings. And not just, I'm not talking about the 8%, 9% move today, Anuj, but I'm saying generally looking forward, also things seem to be very positive. So yes, it's definitely a wake-up call for those who probably ignored it for too long. But you could keep on adding it on minor dips whenever, as and when you get. But the earnings tell you that this is the start of a fairly stronger trend which could last for at least the next 3, 4, 5 quarters.
Okay, and that is a call coming in on Cholamandalam. Big move on the stock today, 9% on the upside. Good afternoon, Prakash. Good to have you on the show. I just sort of wanted to get some thoughts in on some of the other numbers. The one that just flashed by before we came in for the show was Dixon. It's all right. There's some recovery from the first quarter, but given the blowout move on the stock and the market's absolute obsession with it, I don't know, are the numbers justifying it?
No, I think that's the reverse of what the Chola numbers tell you, that the stock has run up in the last year or so. If you see, it's almost like 2.8x, and there's a scarcity premium attached to these two names, Dixon and Ember, for the simple reason that they sit on a very huge opportunity. The headroom to growth is significant. They have pricing power, and then they have the tailwinds of the regulatory environment becoming very positive for them. But, these earnings tell you that this is exactly what they could earn. So if you look at FY23, maybe you start justifying it. Beyond that, there is some case for some PE expansion. But beyond this, I think the EPS needs to now inch up rather than the PE. So I would believe that, they've done the PE expansion bit first, and now the earnings has to catch up. So it will probably have a time correction, if not a price correction necessary. But remember, price to perfection is not a great idea to be into, to buy more of those stocks. We've seen what happened to Maruti. We've seen what happened to some of the other names which did so well in the consumption space. So I would not recommend a add-on on the stock. But if you have, you could probably ride the curve, hold on, and buy it on dips, and then you could get some dips for sure in this name.
Okay, let's move on then. The talking point between now and market close would be Reliance, because that will be reporting its Q2 earnings later today. And we have our young team joining us now to take us through the numbers. Rima, Sonia, Mangalam and Sonal will give you a 360-degree perspective on what to expect from all the verticals. Take it away, guys.
Hello and welcome to the CNBC